we are joined by Joe Kroll from Comcast, where he is VP of Engineering. Some of you may have seen that we were due to be joined by Alan Broom, the MediaKind CEO, this afternoon. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it, but he has been replaced by the equally awesome Corey Zachman, who is our CTO. Corey's actually part of the team that helped build the Multiview solution and service that we're talking about this afternoon, so it can give us some really, really fascinating engineering insights into how it was built and how it works. Between Joe and Corey, they built something that is now in production at Comcast for millions and millions of users. And it's really having an effect on the way that live sports in the US market is being consumed. This session is not going to be death by PowerPoint. Don't worry about that. It's going to be a conversation between the three of us where we tell you the story about how a conversation in the summer of 2024 moved into a real product launch by the autumn, or the fall, as I'm in the US, and how it's been hugely successful and changed the US market over the last 18 months with a huge shift in fan behavior as a result that no one could have envisaged when we first started this. We're going to cover why Comcast decided that Multiview was a service worth investing in. We're going to discuss how it was built, what happened when fans got their hands on it, and then lastly we'll close up with where it goes from here. So, we'll get started. We'll be joined on stage, virtually, by Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn to tell us how much they love Multiview for Xfinity.
What are we thinking? French toast nibblers or breakfast nachos?
Actually, I was thinking about heading out only because I want to beat the traffic.
Traffic? It's a Saturday. There's no traffic.
No.
The best part of the sleepover is the next day. I was going to throw the games on.
Come on, you're a Notre Dame guy. I'm from Texas. I don't want to come over to your house and start dictating how things are going to be. It's more elegant this way. Thank you.
Winners don't compromise.
What?
And nobody watches sports better than me.
Bobby Big Wheels.
Yeah. I mean, how can you call yourself a sports fan without Xfinity? Look at what we're working with here. We got the Multiview. I mean, that picture quality is insane.
Hey, you had me at Multiview.
This is going to be a great weekend.
It's going to be a great season. The best college and pro games all in one place. I'm not going anywhere. Can I tell you something? This is my fantasy football. Watching these games with you. There, I said it.
You ever tried pancakes and guac? You're about to. Yes, let's go! I got a little recipe that I can't tell you, but I think you're going to be happy.
Okay, Corey, Joe, who's Owen, who's Vince?
Vince? Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, let's get started. So, Joe, we'll start off with the big picture here. How strategically important is sports for Comcast, and how does it impact on your consumer base, how you think about them, how you think about retention, how you think about delighting them?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, nobody really spends and invests more in sports as a whole than Comcast, right? So when you think about Xfinity and then NBCU and Sky, like we've just that's really our bread and butter, and it's such a major focus for us as a company. We look at what we do where we bring all this aggregated content together as something that really enables a sports fan like what we just saw to experience all of their favorite moments all through our platform. And if you look at what we've done from a technology standpoint over the last couple of years, whether it's FanView, Multiview, or like the real-time 4K stuff, which Derek Darnell from the team is going to talk about that tomorrow. If you want to hear more on real-time 4K specifically, but we've invested all of this engineering time and attention and resources towards trying to just provide an amazing sports experience for our customers, and like really doing that at no additional cost to them, trying to make sure that we provide value into the platform, that make it the best place to watch sports.
Fantastic. So obviously, sports is very, very critical. And the way that fans have been engaging with sports over the last few years has been changing quite a lot. So let's go back maybe to the summer of 2024, the Paris Olympics were on. You've got fans who are trying to watch multiple sports at the same time, maybe with multiple streams, maybe on multiple devices. Was that the inflection point that made you think that Multiview was a good idea? And why specifically server-side?
Yeah, I would say like we had probably been talking about Multiview for some time leading up to Paris as something we wanted to build into the platform. And we, again, like we look at ourselves as this it's aggregated that brings all this great content together, and we know that people are going to want to watch that. And like the live moment of live sports is like the moment that matters. And so how do you deal with the fact that you've got, 3 or 4 amazing live moments happening at once? Multiview is kind of the natural answer, right? And then, during the Summer Olympics in Paris, Peacock, who we, obviously is part of the Comcast family we partner close with, they launched their Multiview experience, and we saw what the engagement looked like. We saw how it was going, and we said, okay, now's the time we got to go bring this back to like the kind of core experience and the core platform that we have, just to really try to take advantage of that moment.
Okay. So Corey, when Joe and the Comcast team brought this challenge to us, what was the conversation like, and how did you think about how we could approach the architecture for this in MKIO?
Yeah, so it was a little different than what we normally do with Comcast. So MediaKind has been providing linear encoding on-prem in their data centers for many years. And we knew that this use case around Multiview and live events and live sports was different than what we had worked on previously with them. And we knew that it didn't really make sense for that to be provisioned, set up, and running 24/7 in a data center, because there's not always interesting, high-value sports content available. And so at MediaKind, we have a SaaS solution that we, yes, run 24/7 workloads in the cloud, but also do high-value live event content. And so we thought it was a perfect fit to solve the problem that Comcast had brought to us. And so we, like any good vendor, took it back to our internal team, worked closely with a few partners that we have, whether it's on a technology provider side of things, whether it's cloud providers, in order to bring a solution to market. And it was really important for us that with this solution, we were able to spin up, thousands of Multiview streams within, less than an hour's time, and have that available to all of the users. And our MKIO solution was a good fit for that, and we ended up, launching that with the Comcast team.
So, Joe, the timeline on this is remarkable. So, conversation to launch in a few months. I hope you won't take this badly, but very typically for an operator, that kind of new service is measured in years, not months. So, how did you go about achieving that really, really fast timeline?
Yeah, you're right. Like that's unusual for somebody like Comcast. And it was like, so, you said it before, it was kind of summer of 2004, and we made the decision that we were going to do this. So talking with Corey and the team. And then it was like, okay, when do you launch something like that? And look, there's, in the US, that nothing compares to the NFL when it comes to sports and the attention that you get. And so we said, well, what if we tried to launch it for the NFL season? I think Corey wasn't real thrilled with me. But we said, like, let's see what we can do, right? Like, and then we kind of had some conversations around, like, let's make sure that we're thinking about the working relationship and how we build this together a little differently than maybe we've done in the past when we work on stuff. And it was, I think we met daily for a while there. We had, just really kind of got both companies rallied around this goal of launching this thing in time for the start of the NFL season. And we started small, right? We didn't go launch the final product right out of the gate, but we kind of knew what we could do. We iterated from there. It was a really good partnership.
And Corey, from our side, was there anything special that we did, maybe something different from normal?
No, it's a model that we have and that we use a lot whenever these high value projects come on board with short timelines. And it's all about that iterative feedback loop with our customer. We like to, like Joe said, partner with them, work daily with them, do daily stand-ups, and really like try to drive towards that launch date and that common goal. I know on Joe's side, there was a ton of work being done, through the metadata side of things, through the application. And if we just collected a bunch of requirements up front, went off and built something for 10 weeks and showed up at the end, we would have, missed what we were trying to build. And so we really had to work closely together as a team in order to land on that final solution. And I think we did it because of that iterative cadence that both teams landed on and agreed to do.
Great. So Joe, you initially launched a operated curated or static multi-view. I think there's probably about 10 different terms for the same thing in the industry at the moment. What did the data you were getting from the fans, from the consumers, telling you about the adoption of the service and how much they were enjoying it?
Yeah, so like I said, right, like we started small. We knew we wanted to build from there. And I think every time we did a demo or we showed Multiview to anybody, the first thing was, hey, can I pick my own games? Right? So which is the least surprising feedback that you can get. Everybody kind of knows that's ultimately what customers want. And so that was always the vision and where we were building towards. But then the question was, how do we kind of tiptoe our way to that, right? And so we did this, what we called Spotlight, right? Which I think in the commercial there that we were in, you can see it's just like a 2x2 grid. We call it 4-up, but sometimes, sports are it's a really personal experience watching, your team, right? So I'm from Philly, right? So when the Eagles are on, I want to watch that bigger than anybody else. And so I don't want to see the Cowboys lose at the same scale that I see the Eagles winning, right? I want the Eagles big. And so we created that ability to kind of pick one and enlarge it. And again, this was kind of obvious. We kind of knew this, but we saw the engagement just skyrocket when we did that. And I think we saw a 400% increase in time spent in Multiview from when we added the ability to pick a game and rotate which spotlight you were looking at and all that kind of stuff. And so it just kind of reaffirmed that this personalization was key and that we were going to keep building towards that in the long run.
I mean, that's a huge increase. That's really, really impressive. Corey, so something else that's massive is the scale that Multiview is running at. How did we do things operationally to make sure that Joe could sleep at night? I know that Joe has a full head of hair. You and I less so. I'm not sure if that's related or not.
Yeah, so we, I think what was important to us is we always want to drive quality first of the experiences that we deliver. And if you don't have the quality of the streaming experience, it doesn't really matter what features you're delivering. If it has errors and issues, users are not going to engage with it long. And so on the MediaKind side, we did a lot of the standard things that you would do to build a reliable streaming service. We focused a lot on redundancy throughout the whole chain, whether it's at the input layer with the SRT feeds that we're ingesting, whether it was using different regions with our cloud provider, and then ensuring that the packager is a stateless packager, and then eventually onto having redundant paths through CDNs to get to the Comcast footprint. And so we really looked at every step along the way, how can we build redundancy into the solution? And then whenever you're building a big product like this and launching a large streaming service, you want to plan to have observability in the solution, which we do through Prometheus and Grafana, and then ultimately land on we got to have some space for the unknowns that are going to come up. What happens, or what are we going to do if we lose input into a certain region? What happens if, for whatever reason, we're unable to bring up a region in the cloud provider that we're running in? And so, we built those playbooks. We worked with our operations and support team and our partners to have a run book of how to handle those situations and tried to plan for those unknowns.
Okay, that's great. And so Joe, you mentioned you sort of started with NFL to start with, but then you added more and more sports as time went on. So was there a moment as a result of that where you thought wow, this is really working, this is really taking off?
Yeah, like I said earlier, right? We look at our platform as an aggregation platform, and I think when we looked around and we saw what a lot of others are doing with Multiview, it tended to be kind of one sport focused and, okay, I can watch a bunch of NFL at the same time, that's great. But as an aggregator, we kind of felt like we had a unique opportunity to create a different experience for that like multi-sport thing. And so as we were going through it, we had a moment where I think it was Sunday NFL football, Sunday night NFL football, the MLB playoffs were on, and we had the WNBA finals. We put those three together in a 3-up, and that was like set all of our records from an engagement perspective in that first like 6 to 8 months or whatever it was that we were measuring at that point. And like again, it just kind of kept reaffirming what we like our hypothesis around the whole thing, right? And it was, you give people this opportunity to pull all of these amazing moments together, and they're going to engage on the platform. They're going to really love it. It was exciting.
That sounds great. And I mean, where things got even more exciting, we moved forward to October of 2025, and you made the decision to launch and deploy, create your own Multiview, not build your own Multiview. Build sounds hard, create. It sounds easy, yeah, and it is easy.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it was October again, so let's add a bunch of new features and do like stress Corey out, right? So like, yeah, I mean, we've said it a couple of times. We knew this was our end goal, was to get to where we could really, let the viewer customize the experience to what they wanted. I mean, it's so obvious. Like, I hate saying it repeatedly, but like that's where we wanted to get. And so, we had the data, we saw what we were looking at. I think we talked to the team, we started kind of formulating what it would look like. And yeah, we went for it.
So Corey, from an engineering perspective, the move to this create your own is massive. There's a potentially damn it infinite number of combinations you have to deal with, all being rendered real time in the cloud. How does it work?
Yeah, so the original solution, the static solution that we launched for the first season, it was done through composing and generating all of those unique combinations of streams. And at the time, it was great, but we were generating 2,000, 4,000 streams a weekend in order to cover all of the Comcast regions that they have to support content to, and then adding all the different options and configurations that a user could select from. And we knew that that was not going to scale to the level that Comcast was asking for. I want to be able to select from 8 or 10 different channels. I want to make it available in a 2-up, a 3-up, a 4-up, spotlight feeds. Like, we just knew that generating 20,000 streams on a Saturday wasn't going to work. And so we took it back to our innovation team in Ren and we said, is there a way that we can solve this problem? Is there a way that we can come up with a clever, innovative solution in order to bring this functionality to market? And the team took some technology that had been in the HEVC and H.264 codecs for a while, and maybe other vendors were using it on the client, and said, why can't we render that server side just in time as the user is watching it? And so what we built was essentially through our linear encoder, we do HEVC tiling. Through our packager, we then just in time compose those multi-views when they're requested, and then deliver that downstream to the Comcast team. And so it takes away that need to generate, tens of thousands of encodes, and moves it to a single encode per input stream and layout, and then a just-in-time composition on the packager. And so it allowed us to really scale it to the level that Comcast wanted.
That's, hopefully for the audience, fascinating. I find it fascinating. I understand about half of it myself. That's why you have people like Corey, the engineering team, on board. So, Joe, the Comcast have still retained Create Your Own and Operator-Curated Multiview. Is there a reason that you've done that? And is it important for you to have both of those options from a single vendor?
Yeah, I think you don't always, when you go to like a salad bar, sometimes you don't want to do the work to make your own salad. You just want to pick from a menu, right? And so we wanted it to be frictionless. You want to be able to get to it quickly. And the reality is sometimes there are 3 or 4 live sports on, and so we have a curated thing that is real quick, and 90% of the viewership can land there, and there's no work to be done. And then sometimes it's Saturday, it's college football in the fall, and there's a dozen games on at once, and you don't know the rooting interest in college football. It's all over the map, and you can't really rely on a totally curated experience. So it really is if when we hop into the Multiview experience today, we pull up that curated view, we get you to it right away, we get you into it, and then you can then start selecting to create your own and kind of give you that customization. So it was really about how do we make it really easy for customers to get there, get engaged, and enjoy their content.
That's great. And it's not just a feature that people are using, it's changed behavior from what we've heard. Longer sessions, deeper engagement, more time on the platform. Can you talk a bit about the behavior and some of the behavior changes that you've seen in your ecosystem as a result of this?
Yeah, like you said, it's more engagement, right? And so when we look at some of the engagement numbers, like in terms of households that are using Multiview. So October 24 we launched, October 25, a year later, we had a 300% increase in households that were using Multiview on a regular basis. And then more recently, right, we just got done March Madness. This year we had the Create Your Own for the first time for March Madness, and that was a 200% increase year over year from 25 to 26. And so I think as an operator, we would kill to have those kinds of numbers anywhere, and we're really excited seeing that kind of engagement increase.
That's amazing. Corey, we've been doing this in production now for 18 months. I would imagine you've learned a few lessons. Would you like to maybe share a few of them with the audience?
Yeah, I think like any project that you get into, especially these big ones, with tight timelines, you're gonna run into some hiccups along the way. And so a couple of the things that we had to build on was, what do we do if we lose input of one of the feeds? We don't want the whole system to go down. We don't want any Multiview with that combination to be unavailable. And so we built some resiliency into adding blank video or black video and silent audio in case there's any loss of inputs. And also we've built additional failover capabilities between our cloud regions. And so purely from an economic standpoint, okay, you're standing up everything across what we're doing with operator curated or create your own Multiview into cloud regions, that can cause costs to go up. And so we've started to be a little bit smarter about when we run a single region versus dual region. We run kind of warm backups where we could start up the failover region quickly, and that was all done kind of post-launch. And if we would have taken a year to build this solution, I don't think we would have learned those lessons. And so something that was really important with the partnership with Comcast is we knew that it might not be 100% perfect on day one, but together we decided to push towards launch, to get it in front of real users, see how they're using it, see what the error conditions come up in real life, and then engineer around it. And it's kind of back to how we got the product launched in the first place, but it's that tight feedback loop and that iteration is really, really important.
So what comes next for Multiview? Maybe that's a question for both of you. Corey, maybe you want to go first?
Yeah, I think one thing that the MediaKind team is looking at that we find really interesting is if you're making these streams available to your subscribers, typically you would want to try to find additional monetization capabilities. And so we've been looking into maybe doing some LBAR ads or using some of the dead space in the video in order to show advertisements. And we think that that's something that could be really exciting for the industry of well, not only are we adding more content for the viewer to engage with, but we're driving additional monetization and revenue opportunities through, new ad insertion. And we think that that's kind of where we could take this next.
Okay. And Joe, what about for you?
I think for us, it's kind of growing where we're offering it, right? So we've really focused on Xfinity for the most part for the first year. We did, on the Sky side, we launched this past fall for the Bundesliga in Sky Germany as a static curated. And then this past weekend, we just launched for our partners at Rogers, just in time for the NHL playoffs to start. And in the next couple of weeks, right, Corey, we'll be launching in the UK, just in time for that kind of that right at the end of the Premier League when we have everybody playing all at once. We'll be able to give the Sky UK customers a really good experience.
I mean, I think as a Brit who likes watching Premier League and has Sky, the idea of being able to watch maybe the last games of the season where there's 10 games on at the same time to find out whether it's Arsenal, Man City who are winning the league, whether it's Tottenham being relegated, which would be huge news. One of my best friends supports Tottenham. I quite enjoy it, but apologies to any Tottenham fans in the room. That's, I think really, really great to hear is coming out to other customers. And obviously, within MediaKind as well, we've got a couple of other customers who we're launching at the moment that unfortunately we're not allowed to quite talk about yet, but watch this space. This is definitely something which is really, really getting some fantastic market traction. So as I see the clock is rapidly counting down, let's maybe just do one final question. We've got the FIFA World Cup this summer. We live in a world full of sports. I like F1. I'm looking forward to the Tour de France this summer. For any broadcaster or operator or sports league who was looking to launch a service in time for the summer, what would be the one thing that you would say to recommend they do, obviously other than work with MediaKind on this, in order to have a service live, ready for the summer of sports?
That's for me.
That's most of it. You want to start with that one, Joe?
I mean, I think the important thing for me is like the sports calendar is relentless. There's always a new season starting. There's always something that's coming, whether it's the World Cup, as you mentioned, or then you turn around and it's the fall and we've got college football and NFL and Premier League all kicking off, right? And then it just keeps going, right? And you turn around, there's another Olympics, right? So like you have to just go for it. You have to really be aggressive, and I think it starts small, iterate. Yes, work with a really good partner. That is important. And you just gotta take advantage of the moments that are out there because there's plenty of them.
Okay, Corey.
I think from my perspective, what's really important is this was a new way to consume video that really hadn't been brought to everybody in the US or everybody worldwide until just a couple of years ago. And we've seen how important it's become to the viewing experience. And as an industry, we need to do more of that. We need more innovation in this industry. We need more technology. We need more solutions that bring eyeballs to the platforms and that really engage the fans and the viewers that are interacting with the content. And so, Multiview is one way to do it. There's a lot of other ways as well. And I think as an industry, we need to keep pushing towards those innovative ways of consuming content.
Thank you, Corey. So, Multiview, from conversation to production in a few months, from a feature to a change in user and fan behavior in 18 months. Absolutely fascinating topic. I hope you've enjoyed this. Huge thanks to Joe and to Corey. Thank you everyone for attending. Please join me in a rapturous round of applause for my fantastic